M&P, advanced by design.
Gun advertisers sometimes lean on the idea that guns are manly when marketing their products, but their messaging has also changed over time.
The biggest shift I've seen as far as firearms community advertising or marketing has been the shift from the hunting and the shooting sports and the defensive aspect. But I really think it's been driven by the growth of concealed carry and the growth of firearms as a defensive tool far more than they are just a symbol of manliness.
The truth is, they want to ban every gun in America.
Unfortunately, the NRA has taken a shift to really, pandering in a lot of ways to a very small demographic.
The only way we save our country and our freedom is to fight this violence of lies with the clenched fist of truth.
So that image of the angry conservative gun owner, that helps perpetuate the stigma, the negative stigma of gun ownership as a scared, fearful, angry, person.
From my cold, dead hands.
The NRA's messaging, it revolves around them being both victims and heroes. And if we lose gun rights, they argue, then we're going to lose all individual rights and freedoms.
Our rights are freedoms that we own as individuals.
Our individual rights and freedoms are coded masculine according to the NRA because that's about independence, self-reliance. You buy a gun and protect your family and yourself.
This isn't just a rifle.
Gun makers are usually protected from legal or civil recourse when their guns are used in a crime.
Families can sue gun maker Remington.
But in 2019, the Connecticut Supreme Court paved the way for Sandy Hook families to sue companies like Remington, which manufactured the rifle used by shooter Adam Lanza. Lawyers argued that ads like this were aimed at courting disturbed young men.
Violence, especially gun violence, is filtered through society and culture. And so when we expect boys and men to be dominant, powerful, in control, in charge, to not give in, then we're essentially coaching them, training them, rewarding them for potentially engaging in violence when they feel like they've lost control.
All gun owners are certainly not committing violent crimes, but it is important to look at the manifestations of gun violence. Control, and therefore masculinity, is often at the center.
Is anybody injured? Did you say Gabrielle Giffords was hit? She did? Okay, is anybody injured? Yes, a lot of blood. Please help.
Mass shootings are the extreme example of gun violence.
What is the location of your emergency? Call 911.
Some of these shooters had violent tendencies, mental health issues, criminal records, or racist ideologies.
In a matter of seconds, a country music festival turned tragic.
Others were more elusive, and we still don't know why they did it.
We do live in a culture in which we often associate masculinity with violence.
Eric Madfis has studied the phenomenon of American mass shootings and the people who carry them out. They often share a few similar traits in addition to their gender.
The vast majority of mass shooters desire fame. It's a way to be seen as masculine, as tough, as macho.
People dead, including the gunman, after he allegedly posted
To show the world that you have meaning and aren't just weak and don't have that control.
Has been described as a white male.
They tend to be white heterosexual men. They tend to be people who have experienced downward mobility in their life. They tend to blame other people and then therefore get angry at other people for what's happening.
Had an extensive anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish digital...
Right, it's a recourse to perform your masculinity by committing a sort of massive act of violence. But it's not necessarily the full extent of the problem. So if we want to talk about gun violence more generally, right, there's a lot of other things that we could do.
Discussions around solutions to gun violence usually revolve around the same topics. Arming teachers.
Teacher would have a concealed gun on them.
What the Second Amendment means.
Some are even calling for the shredding of the Constitution.
Or calls for more legislation.
The time is now.
But for many, the familiar debates seem no longer adequate.
The current gun debate is a bunch of people at polar opposites screaming at the top of their lungs and not listening to what the other is saying. I am pro-gun, but I don't like this. And this is the hardest part. Because I went through it when it came to Newtown. I have kids. How do you process that?
The gun debate is what happens when we can't talk about feelings of vulnerability, trauma, grief. It's easier to talk about a physical object or a policy we don't like than it is to actually talk about the profound sense of vulnerability that is actually at the heart of the issue of guns and gun politics and gun violence in this country.
We're having a very public discussion right now, a much needed one, about what does it mean to be a man? These ideals that say men should be stoic, we should suppress our emotions, we should be tough and strong at all times, in control of ourselves. Have we established ideals that are toxic for boys and men themselves and also for those around them? When we ignore the role of masculinity when talking about gun violence and mass shootings, then we're ignoring some of the causes of that gun violence. If you don't get at the cause, you're not going to be able to reduce that violence.